I agree with you on the point of being really cautious to make any predictions or so what will come in the future. But is there any classification of mobility behavior in the past? Let's say, I don't know, in the 50s, that was kind of the behavior. In the 60s, 70s, or do we don't have such kind of classification in general? Like what was important for people in a certain period and how this changed until today, like at least looking in the past?
Well, I mean, I think that is rather well known. Not speaking so much of behavior as such, maybe, but of hopes and expectations at the time. Of course, the dream in the 1950s, 60s, 70s was to have your own car and to be able to have your own car, and then also getting better cars. Um, some time ago, I had written an article with a colleague, and again about such a biography, concrete biography of a person, and who expressed quite clearly like how important it was to move from the bicycle of the after-war years to the motorcycle, then to the first Isetta, and and then to the next real car, and getting on and on. And for practical reasons, for many practical reasons, which are not so discussed today, like what distances can you cover, how what comfort do you have in the car, but also what is necessary in repairs. So getting better cars, less prone to failures and things like that. Be able to move your family to travel into holidays together with the entire family. And then, of course, also status. Like this goes parallel, especially in Germany, of course, especially marked with the after-war years, the rebuilding, and and also then the social uplift in income and so forth. Very much linked, of course, also to holiday and holiday behavior, of course. Yeah, where can you go? What can you travel? How often? How long? And that was very, very important. And you can still see that in this now older generations. I mean, these generations are now in their retirement, but that still remains with them. Yeah, even if now they are no longer driving so often, but they still have their beloved car in the garage. Or also a phenomenon is like older people buy a Porsche. Yeah, like after all, they can actually invest in buying a Porsche, and it's a child's dream or a youth dream. They couldn't realize it for 30 years. Now they can, and they do. So they have no need for it, really. Like they're retired or whatever, and so they just go for little strolls, so to say, over the weekend. But to have this kind of car, that is important. That is something which where you can really see how this is really how this was minting a generation or some generations. Yeah.
I mean, you already say that the trend that people decline the personal car, you cannot see this or confirm this, right? Do you see more the trend from the past that more cars are coming to the cities and to the country is continuing? Another trend that I know from my childhood, let's say, is that the car had to be more powerful, more horsepowers, and the engine had to be bigger, larger all the time, right? And what I see, at least in my personal, let's say, friends and family, is that this is not so important anymore, right? The engine can be smaller, the horsepower is not so important. It's okay when when the maximum speed is 150 or 160. It has not to be 200 or more, but comfort is more important. Like the SUVs that are criticized a lot, I know many people buy them because it's more comfortable to sit in them and to drive. You sit high, you see more, and then also things like, for me, was important to have a rear camera. So when I drive back, that I see more and I see that there are no kids or something like this. That I have certain security feature. That was more important for me when I decided to buy a car, rather than horsepower or the size of the engine.
Yeah.
Do you see this, or is it also something that is an illusion? Like?
I would not want to call it an illusion. It's of course it has to do with your personal life, I guess. You also change, like with 20, of course, you have other dreams than maybe with 30 or other preferences. Now you see the comfort more important, and you define comfort maybe differently. Um, that is one thing. And then, of course, it has to do also with social groups, like who is representing that. Like your joy is like this smart thing, like this. You're driving now a hybrid, but if you would change to an e-mobility, and I think that can be something convincing for some people that it's so silent, yeah, that you just rush and swoosh through the streets, and that is an own aesthetic of itself, yeah, and but you have to have, of course, mm, how to say that, the taste for it, and the feel for it, yeah, so that you think that way, you're not, and so you can also make your own statues by like transferring through the cities silently in a discreet way, so to say. And other would see it rather important that they make a big impact, and with sound and everything. And but that also brings us very much to a very important question. And I think to a question that could be really fundamental also for the entire future of car industry and all these changes we had at the time, which is so easily overlooked, and that is design. Like it could be that design questions are becoming more and more important again. Yeah, like maybe we come to this point. Cars, at least from the outside, seem to become more similar in many ways in what they can actually do. And you no longer in certain functions have that differentiation between different brands. Before, if you wanted to have a certain feature, a certain gadget, you had to have a certain brand, also a certain quality. You acquired a certain brand. These differences are diminishing, yeah, and but at the same time, that could be that questions of design um, come again more important, uh, to differentiate, to so that you can really differentiate yourself from somebody else. Say like, yeah. For me, it's not that important that the car is bigger, but it looks more interesting. It is, yeah, and of course we could observe that all. I think over the last decades that vehicles became more and more similar in the overall design for a number of reasons. And maybe there could be some way out of car brands in the future. I mean, in some ways, we saw that already, that suddenly, when did this trend start? 15 years ago or something like that, that icons, certain style icons, made became reintroduced in a new way, like the new Beetle, yeah, and the new Mini, yeah, nostalgia, yeah, but updated, of course, and the reason for that, why, yeah, it's interesting because that didn't exist 40 years ago, 50 years ago. Nobody had the ambition in the 1960s to design a car using a design of the 1930s or something like that, or reviving in
Yeah.
the 1970s a design of the 1950s, yeah, in a way. So that is telling in itself.